time by Caracas is 6 p.m. and this is CBX Business News. The business news headlines are brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible. Diaspora capital in focus. Exxon expands in Guyana and the Fed holds firm on inflation. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Thursday, June 18, 2026. I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, JSE CEO says diaspora investment could help drive Jamaica's economic transformation as the country looks to unlock new sources of long-term capital. Also ahead, ExxonMobil targets 35 new wells offshore Guyana in a major expansion of its fast-growing energy operations. And later, the Federal Reserve holds interest rates steady as Chair Kevin Warsh reaffirms the central bank's commitment to fighting inflation. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Don't never, ever, ever wanna calm down. Oh, no, no. Yeah, yeah.
The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with new signs that one of Jamaica's largest untapped sources of economic financing may not be coming from banks, but from Jamaicans living overseas. As the country pushes for faster economic expansion and long-term development, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, JSE, says the diaspora could play a far greater role in financing that transformation. The exchange says, while billions of dollars flow into Jamaica annually from overseas Jamaicans, significantly more capital could be mobilized if greater emphasis is placed on creating structured investment opportunities. Speaking with CBX Business News on the sidelines of the 11th Biennial Jamaica Diaspora Conference 2026, JSE Group Chief Executive Officer Livingston Morrison says the economic potential sitting within the diaspora remains substantial.
There's a tremendous opportunity for the diaspora to contribute to the transformation of Jamaica as it is currently being fashioned by the government and the various agencies that have been established. NARA, for example, is going to have a transformational role in the next decade or so. The members of the diaspora community have significant opportunity to get involved. There are instruments on the Jamaica Stock Exchange that are available. We have certainly over the last couple of years tried to make it easier and more convenient for persons to establish accounts and establish relationship with their brokers.
At the same time, new indications are suggesting that one of Jamaica's most powerful engines for business expansion remains significantly underutilized. Morrison says, despite the success of its junior market, many small and medium-sized businesses across the country are still operating without access to long-term financing needed to scale, expand operations, and compete at a higher level.
Well, the junior market is viewed as a resounding success. I would share that opinion as well. Having realized or assisted in raising $22.6 billion since 2009, nobody can argue that the junior market has been phenomenally successful. But when you think of the number of small and medium-sized businesses across Jamaica that have sound, solid business models, are making profits, and many of them are capable of further growth and development. If you think about that and put a number to it, then it gives you a sense as to the extent to which the junior market could be, as a framework, has been fully exploited.
But despite the success already recorded, Morrison says the market is still falling short of its full potential.
I don't think that we have fully tapped into the potential of the junior market. And as we work on that with our stakeholders, I think we'll further provide greater access to a large number of entities and also investors going forward.
That was JSC Group CEO Livingston Morrison. The government is signaling possible new support measures for Jamaica's business process outsourcing sector amid growing pressure on the industry from rising operating costs and rapid technological disruption. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness says recommendations coming from players within the sector are now under active review, with the administration preparing policy responses aimed at supporting the industry's long-term stability.
I know that there will be some quiet retort that the sector is under some pressure and they would like the government to have some special considerations. I know that Minister Hill is quite sympathetic and is a strong advocate for the sector, and the recommendations and suggestions made are being actively considered, and you should see something forthcoming from the government in support of the sector.
Holness says the sector remains among Jamaica's leading foreign exchange earners and continues to play a major role in supporting employment growth.
We see the sector as valuable, critical to growth. It is the second or third largest foreign exchange earner for Jamaica. And it is an industry we cannot afford to lose. It has been given quite a bit of bad name. I know how that feels. But it is what you call a foundation industry, an anchor industry for Jamaica. And so we support the BPO industry.
That was Jamaica's Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness. In other news, Tropical Battery Company says it has completed a major $950 million Jamaican dollar sale leaseback transaction involving its Ferry Road headquarters as part of a broader strategy to strengthen its balance sheet and reduce debt obligations. Under the transaction, the company sold the property while retaining full operational control through a long-term lease agreement, ensuring there will be no disruption to business operations. The company says a significant portion of the proceeds has already been used to retire higher-cost debt facilities, which is expected to lower annual interest expenses, while the remaining funds will be directed towards strengthening working capital and supporting operations across its distribution network. Chief Executive Officer Alexander Melville says the move reflects a deliberate capital allocation strategy designed to unlock value from underutilized assets and deploy those resources more efficiently within the business. Now to news from the petroleum market. Fuel prices moved mostly lower on Thursday, with declines recorded across most categories. Automotive diesel fell by 25 cents and is now selling for $211.75 per liter. Ultra-low sulfur diesel also declined by 25 cents to $220.60, while kerosene slipped by 25 cents to $190.40. Gasoline prices also edged lower, with 87 gasoline down 25 cents to $193.38, while 90 gasoline fell 25 cents to $200.83. Cooking gas prices recorded sharper declines, with propane falling by $1.61 to $81.17, while butane dropped by $1.60 to $90.60. We move to the latest updates from the JSE Equities. In Thursday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 113 stocks, of which 51 advanced, 41 declined, and 21 traded firm. Leading the winners are Cygnus Real Estate Finance USD, Mayberry Group, 138 Student Living Jamaica Variable Preference, and Palace Amusement Company, while leading the losers are G West Corporation Ordinary Shares, Epley 7.25% Preference Shares, One-on-One Educational Services, and Sagicor Real Estate X Fund. The main index declined by 1,665.55 points to close at 345,896.17 points. The junior market index advanced by 10.76 points to close at 2,958.78 points. It's time for the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. In today's Market Education feature, we're talking about index funds. Index funds are investment funds designed to track the performance of market benchmarks such as the S&P 500 by holding the same stocks or bonds in similar proportions as the index they follow. This allows investors to gain broad market exposure while benefiting from diversification across different sectors and asset classes. That was the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next. The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. ExxonMobil is preparing a major new offshore exploration program in Guyana that could further expand the country's rapidly growing oil industry over the next 5 years. The energy giant is proposing to drill as many as 35 new wells in the Stabroek block between 2028 and 2033 as it continues searching for additional oil reserves offshore. Guyana's Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, recently opened a 28-day public consultation period as the project undergoes review for potential cumulative environmental impacts. Project documents show the campaign would include exploration wells, appraisal drilling, well testing, and seismic surveys, with operations expected to begin in the second quarter of 2028. ExxonMobil is expected to deploy any of the 5 drill ships currently operating in Guyanese waters to carry out the work. The EPA says the project on its own is not expected to cause significant environmental damage, with any impacts likely to be temporary and localized. However, regulators say the program must still be assessed alongside other existing and planned operations in the Stabroek Block before final approval. The Stabroek Block remains the foundation of Guyana's oil boom, with more than 11 billion barrels of oil equivalent discovered to date by ExxonMobil and its partners. Staying in Guyana, Guyana has generated more than $353 million from carbon credit sales since 2022, creating a fast-growing new revenue stream outside of the country's oil industry. The earnings come under a landmark agreement with Hess Corporation valued at a minimum of $750 million through 2030 to support Guyana's low-carbon development strategy. Senior Director of Climate and RED Plus in the Office of the President, Pradeepa Bolanath, says Guyana has significantly expanded its footprint in international carbon markets over the past few years.
Since then, we've been able to expand those market opportunities in ways that we didn't even envision, to the point now where to date, since 2022, we have earned a total of $353 million from the sale of carbon credits. And that is going towards financing LCDS 2030.
Of the revenues is being channeled directly to indigenous villages to support community development projects.
The range of financing on an annual basis is between 10 to 35 million Guyana dollars that each village, based on their population size, would receive. And these investments go towards the activities that the villages have identified. So it's this impressive process of self-determination. They determine what they would like to see in terms of the look and the shape and the way that the village evolves, and then the financing would go towards making sure that that is possible.
That was Senior Director of Climate and RED Plus in the Office of the President, Pradeepa Bolanath. In other news, Barbados Central Bank has revealed that the first phase of the country's new BIMPay digital payment system cost $6.7 million Barbadian dollars, following growing questions over the project's price tag. The disclosure came on Wednesday after Central Bank Governor Dr. Kevin Greenidge publicly apologized for failing to directly answer questions about the cost of the national payment platform when first asked earlier this week.
A reporter asked me a fair question on the cost of BIMPay, and I should have answered directly. There is no place for making light of a question like that, and there is no place for seemingly dismissive of the public's right to know how public resources are being used.
The governor later returned with a more detailed breakdown of the project's expenditure as officials sought to clarify the financial investment behind the country's digital payments transformation.
The cost of BIMPay to date for Phase 1, the entire payment infrastructure, not just the app, is approximately $6.7 million, against an approved budget of $10 million. We are well within budget, and the work continues to be delivered in phases, and as soon as the remaining work is completed and reconciled through the normal processes, we will report those costs as well.
That was Governor of the Central Bank of Barbados, Dr. Kevin Greenidge. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 17 securities, of which 6 advanced, 4 declined, and 7 traded firm. Today's winners are A.S. Bryden & Sons Holdings, First Citizens Group Financial Holdings, National Enterprises, and Trinidad and Tobago NGL, while leading the losers are Massey Holdings, CIBC Caribbean Bank, Scotiabank Trinidad and Tobago, and Agostini Limited. Trading activity resulted in the following movements of the TTSE indices. The All-TNT Index advanced by 8.85 points to close at 1,444.88. The Composite Index also advanced, but by 4.27 points to close at 991.58. The Cross-Listed Index, however, declined by 0.10 points to close at 70.84. The SME Index remained at 86.92. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
The fact that he lived in a closet, had one shirt, and made something of his life. The Montego Freeport is really his thing that he's most noted for having done, and the vision and having it implemented and changed the life of, the city of Montego Bay. He was chairman of Air Jamaica in 1980. Critical time. Brought about changes and started to create operational profits at Air Jamaica.
Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. What you put in is what you get out. What you put in is what you get out. Yeah. Build up your body, boost up your brain. Take on the world now. Say bye-bye pain. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Be good to you. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Distributed by Amalgamated Distributors Limited.
Welcome back. In international news, the U.S. Federal Reserve left its benchmark interest rate unchanged on Wednesday, while delivering a renewed and unusually forceful commitment to restoring price stability as inflation remains stubbornly above target. In his first post-meeting remarks as Federal Reserve Chairman, Kevin Warsh announced that policymakers voted unanimously to maintain the federal funds target range between 3.50% and 3.75%, citing continued economic growth.
As you saw a few moments ago, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the Fed funds rate at 3.5% to 3.75%. in support of the Fed's dual mandate. The committee also reaffirmed its policy of maintaining ample reserves in the banking system. Economic activity is expanding at a solid pace, despite elevated uncertainty that owes in part to the conflict in the Middle East. Productivity growth and capital investment, both strong. Job gains have kept pace with the workforce, and the unemployment rate has changed little. We recognize that inflation has been running well ahead of the Fed's long-stated inflation goal of 2%.
The Federal Reserve also noted inflation has remained above target for more than 5 years. Warsh delivered one of the institution's strongest policy signals in recent years, saying policymakers remain both unambiguous and unanimous in their determination to bring inflation back under control.
That's been going on for more than 5 years. Persistently high prices are a burden for the American people. But the recent past need not be prologue. I am pleased to report that members of the FOMC are unambiguous and unanimous. This committee will deliver price stability. At any institution, a change in leadership is a natural and timely opportunity to reaffirm its mission, to review current practices, and to consider whether those practices best meet our objectives.
That was Federal Reserve Chairman Kevin Warsh. Meanwhile, central banks across Europe are also tightening policy as inflation concerns continue shaping monetary decisions. The Czech National Bank raised its benchmark two-week repo rate to 3.75% in June, marking its first interest rate increase since 2022 and signaling a renewed commitment to restrictive monetary policy. The decision came despite criticism from the country's Prime Minister Andrej Babis, who warned higher borrowing costs could weigh on lending activity and broader economic growth. The central bank says persistent domestic inflationary pressures remain a major concern, citing rapid money supply growth, first quarter wage growth of 8%, and widening fiscal deficit and inflation risks linked to the Iran conflict. Although headline inflation slowed to 2.1% in May from 2.5% in April, underlying pressures remain elevated, with core inflation holding near 2.9%. Economic growth is also expected to slow this quarter to 2.2% from 2.7% previously. Higher interest rates are also expected to strengthen demand for the Czech koruna, with analysts warning the currency could appreciate further if policymakers signal additional tightening ahead. And in Eastern Europe, policymakers are also maintaining a cautious stance as geopolitical risks continue clouding the inflation outlook. The National Bank of Ukraine left its benchmark policy rate unchanged at 15% during its June meeting, marking the third consecutive decision to leave borrowing costs on hold following a 50 basis point cut earlier this year. Policymakers say current interest rate levels continue providing a sufficiently restrictive monetary environment while supporting demand for hryvnia-denominated fixed income assets. Despite holding rates steady, the central bank maintained a hawkish stance and warned it remains prepared to raise borrowing costs if higher energy prices linked to the Middle East tension begin feeding more aggressively into core inflation. While consumer inflation eased to 8.2% in May, core inflation accelerated to 7.9%, with both readings exceeding central bank projections. The National Bank says inflation is expected to remain broadly stable in the near term, rise again toward year-end, and gradually decline during 2027. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break.
I'm trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
I'm also trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
Start a conversation with the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Check jamstockx.com for information and a list of registered stockbrokers. You can also call the Jamaica Stock Exchange at 876-967-3271 for information on how to begin. I am achieving my financial goals.
I'm achieving my financial goals.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, diaspora investment could help drive Jamaica's economic transformation. Regionally, ExxonMobil targets 35 new wells in major Guyana expansion. And internationally, Fed holds rates steady as Warsh doubles down on inflation. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
Hi, I'm Danielle Cunningham, Marketing Manager at Lasco. You're watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
The Caribbean Business Exchange